And then this fucking story is great. So, you know how we often would talk about the legendary Nintendo shareholder meetings, which
Yes.
would be, in my head, Iwata standing in the middle of the Coliseum like Spaniard in Gladiator and just yelling back at them as they just raw
Why don't you charge people $3 to make Mario jump over the pit?
and just Iwata, just are you not entertained to the fucking roaring crowd, you know? I feel like that's the image of these things, and there's been a couple where there's either a transcript or audio. Maybe it was just a transcript, but I feel like I might have heard audio at one point of like because my brain is either remembering or inventing the exasperation of the answers to these questions that shareholders are asking. Where why can't my kid spend my credit card on your Nintendo games the way my kid spends his credit card on all these other phone bullshit? You know, and just like the whatever that whole era. So someone basically went, I want to ask a question at a shareholder meeting. And
Hmm.
what is that going to take? It's like, well, you have to be a shareholder, but you have to hold at least 100 shares in Nintendo to be at the shareholder meeting. And you might not get your
So it's
question through.
it's not it's not like the greatest barrier to entry, but it's not insignificant.
It's not insignificant because the cost of, at the time at least, 100 shares was $40,000.
Okay, so you would have had to have been a serious investor in Nintendo.
So it would seem.
Maybe not on the grand scale, but definitely on the personal scale.
So a fan basically decided to invest $40,000 in Nintendo specifically to get the floor to ask a question about when they would be bringing back F Zero. now, now, I have to say that compared to the usual investor questions that we know of, which are the awful, when is Nintendo going to just become a gacha company? When is Nintendo
Yeah.
going to triple down on gambling? When are you going to when are you going to start robbing children and giving us the dividends? Line of questioning that you get from the investors. Someone just went in and said, I'm going to pay the cost to ask for a fucking sequel bag live at a
So
meeting.
so the wildest thing is like it's not even the worst idea in the world unless you think Nintendo's stock is going to crash in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of safe. Nintendo tends to do well in the stock market,
I,
right?
I'll
So like
always,
if he really wanted to, he could put it in, ask the question, and then just pull it right the fuck back out.
I don't know what the number is, but I do remember that there was that time when Yamauchi said that Nintendo has the capital to run for 40 years without a profit and
Yeah.
stay in business. And I remember that, like, that stuck with me because I'm like, unless he was just lying, which is not an impossibility because that man was crazy. Um,
Yeah.
that is a wild number, which kind of also explains some of their like hesitation and like
They
decisions to
they
not move forward
reiterated
with
that
things.
around the Wii as well. They
Mm-hmm.
said the Wii was so successful we could keep operating at some degree for decades and decades and decades
Which
without
is
making it pretty much any money at all.
Yeah, now that's not something you're going to hear often because that's not what shareholders want to hear when they invest in a company. But the idea that they could be a loss leader, or and that they could continue
Mhm.
operations without having to shutter, is kind of insane. Thinking about how bigger companies have like fumbled over less, Um, but he asked the question specifically. Yes, when would they uh, return to franchises like F Zero, which hasn't seen a new entry since 2004? And it's no guarantee that every question is going to get answered, but this one did. And the president basically said it's realistically difficult to develop new titles and remakes, including sequels, for every Nintendo game that people request, but we're grateful and we appreciate the expectations our fans have for our games.
Never. The answer is never.
Yeah. Now, I mean, 48 hours before Metroid Dread was announced, that would have been the answer about Metroid as well, right?
Yeah.
So, fucking wait and see. That's it. That's it. It happens when it happens, and it doesn't until it doesn't. But when it does, oh shit, yo, Metroid's back. Oh shit, it's really good. Dang, cool, okay. Send a copy to John Cena. He loved it.
He did. Can we just get John Cena to ask for a new F-Zero? Is that a better solution?
No, because it was still a solid decade between when he asked and when Metroid Dread actually came out. But they did send him a copy. I'm just gonna... It's kind of like fucking us choosing whatever game to play next, right? It'll happen. And if it happened, then it'll be like, oh shit, it's happening. And that's about it.
Listen, if anybody wants to give me $40,000 to play F-Zero, I'll bring F-Zero back for you, I promise.
If you would like to invest in Woolly Versus as an institution to get your LP, we will hear your question. I promise
yes,
you
that is accurate. We will listen to you.
We will hear your question, guaranteed. Yeah, no, it's funny, but it's also like, yeah, I guess he just keeps the investment. You know, that's in that. Like, that's fine.
Nintendo could be there could be much worse companies in the games business to invest in.